Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most iconic, influential, and/or technically gifted male guitarists. We won't be including female players because they deserve their own list. Number 30, Angus Young. Wearing his schoolboy outfit, Angus Young is unmistakable on a stage. He's also responsible for some iconic riffs. His work with AC/DC, along with his brother Malcolm, gives the band its beating heart. He also shows off his raw attitude on every track. From early work in the Bon Scott era to the Brian Johnson days, Young never slows down in his relentless quest to entertain. He's fast, wild, and energetic on such hits as the iconic Thunderstruck. When he's not playing killer lead lines, he can also rock out with some earth-shattering power chords. Young has a youthful attitude that never wavers after all these years. Number 29, Robert Johnson. As the story goes, Robert Johnson sold his soul to the devil in order to become a guitar genius. This tale likely came about because his one-of-a-kind talent couldn't be described any other way. Johnson was a consummate blues player that made some historic recordings in the 1930s. These include standards such as Crossroad Blues, inspiring many of the leading blues and rock players that followed him.
Stand at the crossroads.
The history of American guitar music is incomplete without mentioning his name. His life might have been cut short, but his legend continued to grow long after his death.
All evil spirit can get a greyhound bus.
Number 28, Lindsay Buckingham. You might not always hear his name alongside other legends, but Lindsay Buckingham deserves to be part of the conversation. His songwriting credits alone make him a force to be reckoned with as part of Fleetwood Mac.
Listen to the wind blow, down comes the night.
Not only that, his finger picking gives the band another signature element. He can deliver delicate acoustic performances as well as he can rock out with major solos. Buckingham's work on albums like Rumors defines a decade of music, giving listeners classics ranging from Never Going Back Again to Go Your Own Way.
You can go your own way. Go your own way.
The musician can do it all while singing his heart out on deeply emotional tracks. Number 27, Slash. As a guitarist for Guns N' Roses, Slash is more than just a hard partying rocker. He's also responsible for some incredible riffs on classic records like Appetite for Destruction. From Welcome to the Jungle to Sweet Child of Mine, this guitarist made his stamp on the late 1980s rock scene. He also has defining and vibrant solos like November Rain that reveal his virtuosity. Along with his musical abilities, the performer has one of the coolest and most recognizable looks in music. He's also had success outside his most recognizable band, with groups like Velvet Revolver and other session work. Number 26, Tom Morello. Whether or not he's working with Rage Against the Machine, Tom Morello is an outspoken artist and acclaimed guitarist. His storied work with the band defies the usual cliches about how a guitar should sound. Blending influences from metal to hip-hop, Morello is one half shredder and one half DJ. His eclectic style across the RATM catalog includes funky riffs and otherworldly solos. The musician's time with Audioslave also features more than a few notable parts, including the fearsome guitar on Cochise. His greatest moments feature scratching, toggle switches, and other innovative techniques that push his instrument to the limit. Number 25, George Harrison. Can one of the Beatles still be considered underrated? George Harrison's guitar work sometimes flew under the radar in both his group and solo work. Not only could he pull his weight as a guitarist, the musician worked to attract Western audiences to the Indian sitar. He also penned one of the greatest songs about a guitar ever.
While my guitar gently weeps.
His understated style was the secret weapon for many Beatles classics, while his compositions like Old Brown Shoe showed his ability to rock out. Harrison's career extended beyond his first band into impressive albums in the 70s and 80s. Number 24. Robert Fripp. Few guitarists are as technically gifted as Robert Fripp. As a key member of King Crimson, the musician steered the band through multiple eras of inventive music. The late 60s and early 70s saw the band in top shape, with work like In the Court of the Crimson King, but don't sleep on their 80s output with records like Discipline. Fripp has practically developed his own language with the instrument, using effects pedals and intricate arpeggios. He was also a studio musician that helped out the likes of Talking Heads and David Bowie. Classics like Heroes would not be the same without the performer, delivering his space-like guitar sounds to mainstream audiences.
Oh, we can be heroes just for one day.
Number 23. Chuck Berry. Who is the real king of rock and roll? Some might say Elvis, but others would argue Chuck Berry. His influence on the genre in general and guitar in particular can't be overstated. Helping to create the rock formula, Berry wrote his own music like Johnny B. Good. His rhythm and blues guitar gave a generation of players a new template to expand their own styles. From the Rolling Stones to the Beatles, the musician's work continued to inspire rock performers for many years. He's been covered, imitated, and saluted in films that add to his legend.
Go, Johnny, go, go, go. Go, Johnny, go, go.
Number 22. Alex Lifeson. The progressive trio Rush excelled because each individual member was an expert at their instrument. Needless to say, Alex Lifeson has a masterful command of the guitar. His work with the band stands among the more intricate of its kind, with decade after decade of sensational parts. Lifeson's guitar is nothing if not cinematic in its sound and scale. Whether you're listening to a cutoff of 2112 or a hit like Tom Sawyer, his performance style always fits the piece. He has the ability to both gel with his bandmates and steal the show with his dynamic riffs. Number 21. Jeff Beck. With the Yardbirds, Jeff Beck first established himself as a force of nature. He then went solo and entered the pantheon of world-class guitarists. His talent extends far beyond hits or household name status. With incredible instrumentals, Beck came alive on tracks such as Beck's Bolero. His use of the whammy bar and volume knob took his performances to another stratosphere. He could play blues, progressive, and experimental sounds that pushed the parameters of genre labels. In any of his live shows, the performer took the stage and raised the bar for guitar playing as a whole. Number 20. Carlos Santana. There's something to be said about crossover appeal, bringing a new approach to an underrepresented genre and making it feel fresh to the masses. Carlos Santana executed this brilliantly in the late 60s into the 70s when he combined Latin rhythms and melodies with jazz fusion and hard rock fire. Carlos Santana's fluid, powerful playing style is a force to be reckoned with, but his collaboration with future Journey leader Neil Schon on the band's third album would help make Santana a group of immeasurable influence. Simultaneously progressive, heavy, and heartfelt in his playing style, Carlos Santana has never been one to sit still. After his decades of success, the turn of the millennium saw the artist further innovate for his multi-platinum smash Supernatural. Number 19. Mark Knopfler. We've all heard the phrase less is more, but Dire Straits' main man, Mark Knopfler, took that idea one step further with his light and sensitive touch. Knopfler is a finger player similar to Fleetwood Mac's Lindsay Buckingham, and tends to shun heavy riffs and showboating. Instead, Knopfler uses a tasteful and melodic approach to weave a tapestry of emotion and feeling within each note and phrase. For every up-tempo solo, like the famous one in Sultans of Swing, there are moments of quiet brilliance, such as the delicate intro to Romeo and Juliet. Or the driving main hook of Lady Writer. Knopfler also branched out into a solo career after Dire Straits, even composing a fantastic score for the classic 80s fantasy romance The Princess Bride.
As you wish.
As you wish was all he ever said.
Number 18. Billy Gibbons. Billy Gibbons is famous for many reasons, from his pioneering psychedelic work with the Moving Sidewalks to the blues and southern rock royalty that is ZZ Top. Gibbons was also reportedly one of Jimi Hendrix's favorite guitar players, alongside Chicago's Terry Kath, and it's easy to see why. The man is an under-the-radar ripper. Perhaps it's Gibbons' wealth of influences that make him such a versatile player, incorporating everything from swamp blues and boogie woogie into ZZ Top's brand of riff-heavy rock and roll. Or maybe it's how Gibbons and his crew embraced the synthesizer revolution of the 1980s with the Eliminator album, bringing us smash hits like Legs and Got Me Under Pressure. The answer is all of the above. Billy Gibbons is the man. Number 17. Inve Malmstein. Okay, so remember how we were just talking about less being more? Throw that idea out the window for a moment, because that definitely does not apply to Sweden's Inve Malmstein. That's because Malmsteen is all about the neoclassical shred style, eschewing subtlety for a more is more approach that champions speed, technique, and precision. The man's early solo work after departing from the 80s metal band Steeler is deeply indebted to the sort of classical composition pioneered by bands like Deep Purple in the early 70s. Mixing up fantasy and romantic themes with guitar heroics that'll set your hair on fire. Malmsteen is in that special masterclass of axemen. Think Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, whose fretboard skills are simply not of this world. Number 16. Prince. Prince is a legend today for his work in the worlds of pop, rock, and funk fusion. But with all the Purple One's accomplishments, it's sometimes easy to forget the man's prowess as a guitar player. Just take a look at Prince's performance at the 2004 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, where he managed to outshine a stage full of icons with a performance that brought the house down. He was a walking masterclass, a man who truly played the guitar like it's an extension of himself, laying down licks and solos that seemed to run like electricity through his fingers. It didn't matter whether he was playing with the Revolution or on his own. Prince was a one-of-a-kind talent. Number 15, Dimebag Darrell. Heavy metal, like any other musical genre, is in a constant state of evolution, driven by inventive musicians pushing the limits. Pantera were just such a catalyst for change in the 90s, a former hair metal act who embraced the power groove style developed by contemporaries X-Hoarder and gave it their own unique spin. Pantera's own impact, however, was largely driven by Dimebag Darrell's explosive guitar. It was at once theatrical and yet tempered, with an undying desire to play as heavy as possible. Riffs were Darrell's game. Combining a thrashy sound with deliberate phrasing, it had mosh pit drawing power. Sadly, the metal icon's career and life was cut short by an obsessed fan while Darrell was on stage in 2004. Number 14, Pete Townsend. Style and substance. Both of these traits exemplified the playing of Who guitarist and co-founder Pete Townsend, who helped define classic rock in the 1960s and 70s. Townsend had the mark of a perfectionist, an attention to detail that makes his riffing feel deliberate and thoughtful, no matter how chaotic the performance. With his energetic stage presence, the guitarist simultaneously gave all young guitar players ideas while they were practicing in the mirror. Ever seen a local hotshot windmill their arm around while playing at your local pub? Yeah, they're mimicking Pete Townsend. More than that, however, Pete had the chops and songwriting prowess to back up his bombast, making The Who one of the best English rock bands of all time. Number 13, Brian May. There's a lot of work that goes into recording an album, but what if you want to venture into uncharted territory? Well, then you get someone like Brian May, a guitarist who isn't just happy to kick out awesome riffs, but wants to push the sonic barrier to the limit. May's early approach to Queen mainly plays with an epic heavy rock palette, but as years progressed, Brian would add layers and layers of guitar tracks. This resulted in sonically rich Queen albums like A Night at the Opera and News of the World. Brian May is a technician, a melodic player that can also let loose with a surprising amount of grit when the situation calls. His guitar playing is truly the work of an artist. Number 12, Frank Zappa. Genius or madman? Both words suit Frank Zappa, an anarchic sort of guitar player who couldn't ever be tied down to one style.
The power of pop music to corrupt and putrefy the minds of world youth are virtually limitless.
Jazz fusion, hard rock, and psych were all part of the package for this unstoppable composer, a guitar player with absolutely no limits to his talent. And that's sort of the beauty behind Zappa's recorded output. There's something for everybody. Want some heavy psych moves? Check out one of his groovier albums with the Mothers of Invention. Into something truly out there and trippy? Dive into his film score for 200 Motels or his twisted concept album, Joe's Garage.
Thought we was pretty good. Talked about keeping the band together and we figured that we should.
Sadly, Frank succumbed to prostate cancer in 1993. We can only guess what other craziness he might have conjured up.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank every one of you. And good night.
Number 11. Tony Iommi. Were there heavy guitar players before Tony Iommi? Sure. But none crystallized the prototypical sound of heavy metal quite like this Black Sabbath co-founder. Legend has it this was due to an accident Tony had on his last day of work at a factory that resulted in the loss of 2 fingertips on his fretting hand. As a result, Iommi had to press harder, thanks to handcrafted prosthetics changing his entire approach. Now Iommi was playing heavy, doomy, and down-tuned riffs that sounded birthed from some gothic horror movie. Meanwhile, his underrated solo work again stood out thanks to his light, slack strings and an approach that emphasized mood rather than flash. Said simply, before any metal band did anything, Iommi and Sabbath did everything. Number 10. Richie Blackmore. If Tony Iommi is the godfather of heavy metal, then Deep Purple's Richie Blackmore was nipping right at his heels. Blackmore had a flashy, classically influenced style that was in stark contrast to the monolithic world of 1970s arena rock. Deep Purple was a band rooted in psychedelia that embraced crazy fast tempos and indulgent solo runs, getting more extreme as the decade progressed. To uncover some of Blackmore's best work, listen to the Mark III lineup with future Whitesnake singer David Coverdale. The blazing lead guitar in Burn and the understated emotion present within Soldier of Fortune really epitomize Blackmore's range. Richie wouldn't stay stagnant with the hard rock world either, embracing melodic English folk years later with the project Blackmore's Night. Number 9. B.B. King. What can we say about blues legend B.B. King that hasn't already been said?
And I can't even close my eyes.
It can be difficult to stand out in the crowded arena of bluesmen and women seeking to make their mark in a genre so rooted in tradition. The blues comes from deep within, and simplicity is the key to bearing your heart and soul to the audience. King communicated just as effectively using his trusted guitar Lucille as he did when he sang classics like The Thrill Is Gone.
Thrill is gone. Thrill is gone.
His technique was smooth and seemed almost effortless as he glided across her strings to tell his story. There's raw feeling, honesty, and guts in B.B. King's playing, and that's just one part of what made the man so amazing. Number 8. Randy Rhodes. Oh, what might have been. There's no denying that former Ozzy Osbourne and Quiet Riot guitarist Randy Rhodes achieved a lot in a comparatively short amount of time. Still, this young man was so talented that it's difficult not to imagine what more Rhodes could have done, had he not been lost in a tragic plane crash. Make no mistake, Rhodes inspired generations of guitar players in his wake, thanks to his perfectionist manner of mixing hard rock bombast with legit classical chops. Want proof? Check out Laughing Gas with Quiet Riot, or anything off the 2 full-length albums that Rhodes recorded with Ozzy. He was an icon who may have been taken too soon, but his spirit lives on forever. Number 7, Eric Clapton. Clapton is God. This was the famous UK graffiti slogan that championed a brash young bloke fresh on the scene after forming Cream in 1966.
At the party, she was kindness in the hard crowd.
Cream served as one of the transitional bands that was taking Britain's love of the blues and making it harder, heavier, and more psychedelic. The band served as a vehicle for a genre in transition and would help make Eric Clapton a legitimate guitar hero. More classic stints would follow in Derek and the Dominos, as well as his solo career, although battles with drug addiction, a drunken anti-immigration outburst in 1976, and the tragic loss of his son had some complications on his career. Still, there's no denying how influential Eric Clapton was, and continues to be, for generations of young guitarists. Number 6, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan played traditional down-home American blues. No more, no less. It was the way in which he approached the blues, however, that made him a legend. A blue-collar attack that was both approachable and mesmerizing. Vaughan could take the most basic 4-bar arrangement and turn it into a sustained symphony of held notes and triumphant licks. With a basic drum and bass backbeat, Vaughan would figuratively set his fretboard on fire with songs like Texas Flood and Crossfire.
Time to spare, money's tight, nothing free.
Earning himself critical acclaim and fan adoration from around the world.
Caught in the crossfire.
Sadly, Stevie Ray was taken in a helicopter crash in 1990, robbing the blues and rock world of yet another shining star. Number 5, Keith Richards. Sometimes the best riffs are the simplest and most immediate. Start Me Up and I Can't Get No Satisfaction are 2 great examples, and they have one great guitarist in common as their co-writer, Keith Richards. Keith has that nebulous quality about him that just exudes a born rock star swagger. Maybe it's how low Richards sets his guitar, his voracious appetite for the good life, or those imminently hummable riffs. Keith just has it. That isn't to say that Richards isn't serious about rocking, of course, as the legions of Stones fanatics will tell you. After all, the Rolling Stones didn't get to become classic rock royalty by doing anything in half measures. Number 4, David Gilmour. Pink Floyd was already turning heads with their formative brand of psychedelic rock before 1967, but the band gained a whole other dynamic when David Gilmour joined in December of that year. It was with Gilmour that Floyd would record such genre-defining albums as Animals, Metal, and Dark Side of the Moon. Gilmour wasn't just a sideman, however. and his influence grew until he actually took over the band when founder Roger Waters left in 1985. Though this divided the fan base, the albums after this were arguably even smoother, more melodic, and moving, thanks to David's amazing tone and technique. He is truly one of a kind. Number 3, Eddie Van Halen. His were the fingers that launched 1,000 careers. The guitarist who, with one amazing instrumental, put every other band on notice. His name was Eddie Van Halen, the song was Eruption, and heavy rock was never the same. Every hair metal band on the Sunset Strip attempted to ape Eddie's furious technique and stylistic flair, but no one ever did it like Van Halen. This is likely because of Eddie's classically based influences, an honest-to-goodness approach to music theory that lifted every Van Halen banger to a game-changing level. From Atomic Punk and Jamie's Crying to On Fire, Light Up the Sky, and Mean Street, EVH had the riffs, the style, and a band of stone-cold killers backing him up. It was a perfect storm. Number 2, Jimmy Page. Critics of Jimmy Page have called him sloppy, and let's say enthusiastic about borrowing riffs from other bands. But have any of those people ever played their guitar with a cello bow? We think not. Criticisms aside, Page is one of the most influential guitar players to ever pick up the instrument. He possesses a wide array of influences that permeated the music of Led Zeppelin, from Eastern scales and melodies to bombastic heavy riffs that predated heavy metal. Page loved the blues and arguably rocked harder than anyone in his days, both on stage and after the show. There were very few performers who could outdo Jimmy Page in the live setting. In his prime, he was absolutely a rock star's rock star. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, Jimi Hendrix. His career burned out far too quickly, but this rock legend quite simply revolutionized the electric guitar. Hendrix and his band, The Experience, were more than just a bluesy, psychedelic rock power group. They were a showcase to the progression of rock music as a whole. This was largely thanks to Hendrix's chops and stage presence, a hurricane of charisma that was far more than him setting his guitar on fire or playing with his teeth. There was just as much tastefulness to his playing as there was an intense, raw energy. This unstoppable force rightfully captivated anyone who was lucky enough to see the master at work. Did we forget another amazing guitarist? Let us know in the comments. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.